Tom.
Here we are again.
Here we go.
Let's travel.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Well, you know, and one thing I wanted to mention, the cruise industry, and we know how that's changed, always changing, but there are some people that are just in love with shipboard life, and a lot of your clients are that way. The Megans, for one instance, and Carol Monson, they just love it.
Jan
What's
the Cosmans.
Yeah, I mean, they just, but there are some real cruise lovers out there. And remember that cruise we took on Cunard, and there was a Japanese couple, and they give out pins on Cunard depending upon how many Cunard days or trips you have taken. And this guy and his wife, they had run out of categories for him. 1,300 plus days on Cunard cruise ships. That's like 4 years on a cruise ship. Remember that guy?
Well, I remember you've seen those reports that say it's actually cheaper to take a cruise all year than it would be to live in a nursing home.
Exactly.
You know, service is better.
Food is too. But there's this one lady, her name is Miss Joy Leroy.
Miss Joy Leroy?
And she took her 100th Crystal cruise, and we know those aren't cheap.
Could you give her my card?
Exactly. But you can tell that she loves to stay on board the ship and just constantly cruises. What do you think her most exciting port is? Her favorite
Istanbul.
port? Boston.
Really?
So she doesn't get off the ship much. But this other character here, they call him Super Mario, and Faith, I'm sure, has heard of this guy. He's taken 600 cruises, 480 of them on Royal Caribbean.
Oh my gosh! What's his favorite ship?
His favorite ship is the Liberty of the Seas.
It's the Liberty.
Yeah.
Oh, I just lied to a client last night and told him his favorite was the Freedom of the Seas.
Well, same style, but remember we were on the inaugural cruise of the Liberty out of New York.
I loved that.
That was a great
those
trip.
views, and that's a real interesting port to cruise out of. It's called the New Jersey port, but really the sail out by the Statue of Liberty is one of those.
It's beautiful.
Which you'll see with Tom Staudt's going to be on today, starting his series of Europe's Excellent Adventure with the Staudt family. And that was one thing that he talked about, are those moments when, you know, a view will take your breath away. And the view of the Statue of Liberty from a ship is stunning.
Yeah. Well, do you remember that morning we sailed into New York at the end of our transatlantic crossing from Southampton?
Yes.
And we arrived in New York. It was about 5:30 in the morning, 6 in the morning, I can't remember. But it was just getting light, and the World Trade Center was still there. And so the lights were on in Manhattan, but it was getting bright. And there were people who were weeping on deck. Just the sight of cruising into New York, a city that these people have all heard about. And finally they were seeing New York and seeing it in the early morning with the lights still on. I'll never forget that.
Oh, it was. It was a special moment,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I should mention now that the 2013 transatlantic crossings are now open and out for sale. So, and that's one of those cruises, too, that you really need to seek professional help, because that's one of the few ships where the dining rooms are classed. If you stay in the, you know, certain categories, eat in the Queen's dining room, the Princess dining room, and that kind of thing. So but I would recommend that you do it.
It's old, you know, and we have the 100th anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic that just happened, and it's that old style. You still get that old feeling of transatlantic crossings back in the glamour days. So I highly recommend it.
Well, I think cruising is glamorous, and it is unique. And as we were saying, it offers travel opportunities that you might not have. I mean, when you were looking at the values that Faith was talking about, $499 for a 7-night Mediterranean cruise.
Right.
I mean, my goodness, it's your transportation, your accommodations, and all of your meals and entertainment.
Right.
And to see 5 countries, like maybe that, you know, isn't the ultimate way to do Europe, but it's sure the ultimate way to get a taste of it.
Exactly, and a good value as well.
And a great way to expose your kids and your grandkids. I mean, can you imagine? Well, you went all over Europe with your grandparents and parents, so you know how much more work that is compared to unpacking once and just sort of.
Oh, there's nothing like it, and when you can make you know, multiple stops in multiple countries, it's even that much better of an experience.
Yeah. So, I mean, the interview that's coming up with Tim Staudt, Tom, I think is really significant. And, It's sort of, we all like to sort of mock Tim Staudt about his lack of travel interest versus I'm not sure about his other sons, but certainly Tom, and it sounds like his son Pat and his wife are avid travelers. So it's really fun, told by Tom, and it's kind of a 4-part series because there were a lot of travel details that we wanted to talk to.
Well, I'm a fan of Tim's radio show, so whenever I'm in the car in the morning or whatever, I tune him in. And he was in Mexico a couple of years ago. I don't think he even knew what city he was in. He just knew he was in Mexico. It's funny.
Well, I thought it was so funny because I couldn't wait to hear when they got back because he had told us at the Grand Hotel anniversary.
But you can tell it made an impression on him. Anytime you step out of the box, which is what travel's all about, it enriches your life, and all your vivid memories are usually travel related. Mine are anyway.
Yeah, and I think it made an impression on Tom because he feels like he did something great by encouraging his dad to do something that was on his bucket list. So stay tuned. We've got a 4-part series coming up in the next 4 shows. We'll be back with that right after this.
In Muskegon, Michigan, there's plenty to see aside from the beaches. When you're not crawling around in the Pier Marquette stand, take a look right down the road and you might find something that piques your interest. Military-grade weapons in the same place you can hear children at play. That and this giant propeller can only mean one thing, and that's that you're at the USS Silverside Submarine Museum. Abundant in World War II relics, old military propaganda, and housing a tremendous timeline, the interior of the museum is truly a maze of history.
The museum is fairly new. It's approximately 3 years old. We used to have a little trailer with just a little tiny gift shop and a little small museum. This building put in, and we're making changes regularly in the museum. I don't know if you walked around, you notice there's things that keep changing, which is what museums do.
And each change is clearly meant to provide guests with an excellent experience. This museum houses the actual control system from the original nuclear submarine, the USS Silversides. The USS Silverside submarine is the vessel that the museum is centered around. It's a World War II submarine called the SS-236, and it was the 3rd most successful submarine during the war. It sank 30 vessels to earn that recognition, 23 of which were significant, meaning they weighed over 500 tons. While a multitude of World War II facts can be found inside the museum, along with an impressive interactive periscope through the roof, the best stuff can be found in the Lake Michigan Muskegon Lake Channel.
Here at the museum, we have the Silversides. We have the Coast Guard cutter McLean, which is a World War II era Coast Guard cutter made in 1927.
Because the submarine is still intact, the title is actually the world's most successful World War II submarine still around. Well, we're here now on the deck of the actual submarine, the main event of the museum, and believe it or not, you can actually sleep below the deck if you set up an appointment.
We can sleep 72 on the submarine, and we usually sleep up to 36 on the Coast Guard cutter. Boy Scout troops, Cub Scout groups, Girl Scout troops, YMCAs, 4-H's, all kinds of groups come and sleep on the submarine.
And you don't need an organization to spend a night on a World War II relic. Reynolds says families come all the time to see what it was like for our troops to live in a submarine back then. So if you think you've seen it all, come out to the Silversides Museum and take a robotics class. They offer full days of robotics engineering, a Navy knot tying class, an oil rig robotics simulation class, a peace sub convention in August where there will be even more submarines on the channel, a lost boat ceremony, and an annual Black History Month veterans event. And if you've been paying attention, you'll remember that this museum is constantly changing, which means that you should keep checking back for new classes, new events, and awesome stuff.
Come and see us. We have a lot of people who live in Muskegon who don't even know we're here.
You can find the museum, the submarine, the Coast Guard cutter, and much more, all right on the channel between Lake Michigan and Muskegon Lake. This has been Zachary Pena, and I hope to see you on the USS Silverside submarine.
Hi, Tom. Welcome back to the show. Tom Staudt. It's good to see you again. And you're back by popular demand. I mean, I have to tell you, I ask you back because I love your travel stories. And your most recent trip is just very interesting. So let's talk about what this trip was about.
I think it relates a lot to what different families go through. My brother was studying abroad, or he's finishing up right now, but he's studying abroad in Dublin, Ireland. And so it's been a couple months since anybody in the family's seen him. And it's also a place that none of us had really been to before, so it was a good opportunity to take a trip, a justification, if you will,
And not to pick on him, but we should mention that your dad is Tim Staudt.
Yes.
So you and I kind of always have nothing that we wouldn't say to his face.
No, that's true.
But just that he doesn't necessarily have the same love of travel that certainly you and your mom do.
No, I think it would be safe to say that he'd be the exact opposite.
So you kind of baited him into taking this trip. How?
Well, we had to come up with reasons. I mean, we had to get him along, get him on. You know, we were right up into the point where we were leaving. You just weren't sure, but we wanted to make sure. We gave him a chance to see my brother. We gave him a chance to get on, you know, to see someplace new, to go with him, and also to cross off a bucket list item.
Which was?
We weren't sure that we would get him back if this didn't go real well, and he's always been on his list to go to Normandy and the
So you thought
beaches.
as long as you got him over the pond,
We
you
figured
better
Europe-
get him up to Normandy
That's
because
right.
he was never going to get. He
We
might
figured
not
Europe
get
was as close as we could get to be sure that he was there, so we took that chance.
So you mean to tell me that you didn't have to add golf into this to talk him into going?
Well, we had to sweeten the pot at the end with a couple of well-known golf courses there as well.
So tell me how the trip was designed.
Well, it started. We flew from Chicago to Dublin. There's a
On what airline
nonstop
did
Air
you-
Lingus.
Aren't they fun?
Air Lingus is tremendous.
How did Tim like them?
We joke because the last time he was in Europe was when he was a kid and he took a boat.
Oh, come on.
Which sounds like a punchline to a joke, but it's really not. And so there's no real experience there with transatlantic flight. And I don't think, I think he had in his head the cramped domestic, kind of leave you the whole way kind of situation where he would be bored. And I know the time factor kind of made him nervous, but truthfully, he'll tell you himself, he thought the flight was great. It was smooth. They kept coming with food, drink. He had his own little movie section. He could watch whatever he wanted. And, to quote him himself, he thought the flights were no issue. And that was probably his biggest fear.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, and I'm glad you're sharing that with people because a lot of times it's interesting what precludes people from doing something that's really going to significantly change their life. So, and I'm just going to say this too, for real busy people, I think that's another thing that your dad didn't realize, is not the fact that nobody can bug you for that period of time, that you can just play video games and read, and people bring food and drinks to your chair is a nice thing.
Well, and the other thing is to remember when you're going to Europe, because of the time change, that day you go, you leave at night in the U.S., and you land in the morning there. So if you can sleep, it's like a nighttime, flight, really, because when you get there, it's a new day, and you've got to get up and go. And, that first day, I think, no matter who you are, is going to be a little bit tiring, but you really can sleep that whole night. Yeah.
So what did you think of Dublin?
I like Dublin. It's not like other European capital cities. I mean, to be fair, the country of Ireland as a whole is less than the population of New York City. So, and not all the population is in Dublin. So it's not a huge city. I mean, you think the name, I would say, has a bigger aura to it than the actual size of the city. But, it's one of those places where it kind of feels like a small town, even though it's a capital city for a country. It's interesting. The Irish people as a whole are great, but the pubs on every street corner, the streets with the shops like Grafton
Temple
Street.
Bar. How about Temple?
We actually stayed in the Temple Bar area.
You did? Where'd you stay?
Right at the Temple Bar Hotel there.
Oh my God!
Right in the heart of all the action.
How did your folks deal with that? That's like New Orleans on a Friday night.
It is. It's like a New Orleans on a Friday night every night.
Exactly. And one thing I didn't know, and you and I were talking about, Ireland wasn't at all what either of us expected.
Yes.
That I think 50% of the population is under 25
yes.
there.
It's very young.
It's a very young, lively.
It's very young. It's very active. They live a little bit different. They're on a little bit different time than Americans are on, I would say. They go out most nights because it's okay.
Yeah.
And they want to have fun, and they're very great. I mean, if you can walk into a pub and start talking to them, they're great people.
Except, a lot of times when I would go into the pubs, the only word I could understand them to say was the F word. Their accents were so stiff, and that happens to be their favorite word, as you now know.
It is. It's a very, it's a more relaxed atmosphere,
It's just like
socially.
This man was talking to me in a pub, and that was the only word I understood in the entire 20-minute
What's
conversation.
great, though, what I like a lot is
They
that
love to talk.
they love politics, too.
Oh, my God.
Specifically American politics. And,
Yeah.
you know, regardless of what you believe, their grasp on some of the facts are sometimes dead on and sometimes are like,
Seriously?
whoa. I mean, you're like, you got the names right, but that's about where it stops. But they want to talk and
Yeah.
they want to debate, even though I don't even know if they have a position. It's just for the livelihood of debating it.
The Irish just really like to converse.
They really
know?
do. And it's funny because a lot of them have somewhere along their family lines, family in the United States now. And they were telling us that a great source of honor in Ireland is if you can manage to keep your family all in Ireland. And the vast majority do not, and the United States is one of those destinations. So a lot of people can bits and pieces relate to the U.S. Just through their own families. It's funny, Michigan to them is a foreign concept until you say Detroit. And they keep the cars.
Yeah, or
I don't think
Motown,
they can find.
Motown's
Yeah, they
like,
can't find it in a map.
Yeah.
And you just kept saying, well, we're sort of to the right of Chicago. Close enough.
Yeah. We're between New York and Chicago, somewhere right
pick
there.
it in the middle and we make cars. And that's kind of how they know Michigan.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
I mean, they're great to talk with, and they all want to just have a good time.
Yeah. And did you do Guinness?
We did Guinness.
How did your dad deal with the whole...
He's not, he is a...
the puppy, did he do the pub scene?
We forced him out there. That's not his scene, but we got him out there. We only got him to do Guinness once, and then he said, that's
Drink
enough
the
of
beer
that.
or go to Guinness?
We did go to Guinness, and
I
he
thought
did
that
go.
was that view from up.
Well, it's
at
the best
top.
view in the city, really, is in the top. If you want the best view of Dublin, you have to go
Yeah.
to the Guinness factory, because the roundabout room at the top of the all glass is really, it's the second highest point in the whole city.
I got really hooked on Guinness when I was there. Did you?
See, I like Guinness, and I think it tastes
before.
better in Ireland than it does
no
here.
question.
There's no doubt about it. But I think that they have some other great beers as well. It's not all Guinness. I think they have some, they have a handful of really, it's different than American beer, but it's great.
So what we have to do, Tom, is we just got you to Europe. Let's tell everyone that you want to stay tuned for this series, because we're going to come back and talk about what you and your family did from there on. Thanks so much.
Sounds good.
We'll be back with Tom right after this.
If you haven't donated blood before, or it's been a long time since you have donated, please come out. 97% of us will either need blood or know someone who needs blood in our lifetimes. That's almost all of us. Plus, blood is used for premature infants, patients battling cancer, people with sickle cell anemia, as well as many others. Did you know that less than 5% of the eligible population, meaning those that would be good candidates to donate blood, actually do? That's about 95% of people who could donate that aren't doing it. You never know when you or someone you love will need blood. Blood is perishable and only has a shelf life of 42 days. You can donate every 56 days, 6 times a year. Please come out and donate and give the gift of life.
Hi, Faith.
Hi, Joy.
It's great to have you back in the studio and keeping us updated on
I always
cruising.
look forward to being with you, Joy.
Yeah. Well, the subject that you wanted to talk about today was first-time cruisers.
Yes.
And there's a whole market of those out there, and of course they're always like, oh, what about the Concordia? What about the E. coli? All of that kind of thing. I just don't hear any of that.
I don't hear any of that. What I hear from folks that have never cruised before, and I look at all kinds of surveys all the time, because I see this as the greatest growth opportunity for us to expose people that have objections to cruising. And you know what those objections are, Joy? They think they're going to be bored. That is one of the number one reasons that folks don't take a cruise. And the other one is regiment. They think that it's going to be a regimented schedule. What do you say to that?
I think that's one thing that you've changed. And I know I taught a selling travel class at Lansing Community College back in the lean days. And that was the section that we sold about cruising, were the objections and being bored. In fact, it's just the opposite. People start to crave those days at sea because there are so many activities. And they aren't just cheesy activities, you know, what people think shuffleboard and that kind of thing.
Right.
Or you say, starting out from 6 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the morning, the night before your cruise, you are given a list of hourly activities. And they can range anywhere from bridge to art lectures to spa or spin classes. So for anyone's taste, but coming into the summer season too, the opportunities for multi-generational families.
Exactly. And when I think about Royal Caribbean and our ships and having the most innovative ships at sea, not only do we have the lectures and the spa experiences, but we have zip lines. We have the sports courts where you can play baseball, basketball, tennis. You can putt-putt golf in a 9-hole course. There's really something for everybody.
There's movies, there's basketball, there's, you know, I always call them the Explorer Clubs, but that's not what they're called, are they? For the kids?
The Adventure Youth Ocean Program.
Yeah, which I think, you know, I see a lot. Maybe it's because we're in a college community.
Right.
But education is always so important to the families in our community. So taking their kids on a trip like this and having them also have that educational component really adds to the experience.
It is educational and fun joy.
Yes, of course. Travel's continuing education, right?
It absolutely is.
Yeah. So as far as first-time cruisers also, what are some of their other objections?
We were talking about regiment, and I think that they think that I have to dine at a table of 10 people at 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and they don't understand that outside of that regiment, there is no schedule. You can either have traditional seating, and that's what we call it in the cruise business, traditional dining, or you can dine when you want to, where you want to. And then, for example, on the Oasis and Allure of the Seas, our 2 new little kids on the block, there's over 27 dining venues on board that ship. Those ships, I should say.
Well, one thing, maybe I shouldn't spin off on those, but I have a picture to show you that we'll have Rob put up of a client of mine. He was very well known in the community. His name is Art and Jean Budden, and he just took all of his children and his grandchildren on the Oasis. Now, I've sent him everywhere from South Africa to Cambodia, so he's really an avid traveler, but he said that Oasis is not like anything he could have even visualized.
It just takes your breath away with the environment. It is nothing that you can even begin to imagine. You have to experience it.
And he was very pleased with the experience. And
it's wonderful.
in fact, one of the pictures I have of him is his wife doing the zip lining.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have a commercial where you can hear, it sounds like Tarzan as you're just going across, and then the sound of relaxation with a drink being poured. So all of those different dynamics with a cruise experience, from laying by the pool to ziplining over 16 feet or 16 deck high above the population, is quite the experience.
And typically a dozen shore excursions to choose from. So when you do get to port, whether you happen to be a snorkeler or a water lover or a fisherman or a golfer, or I want to know all about the culture, that you have those options. And in multi-generational family kinds of trips, you'll have anyone from a toddler to an 80-year-old, so the interests are very diverse.
Exactly.
And that's what a cruise offers as well.
That's the best part about a cruise. I think it's fun to go to a destination and stay put, but what a cruise offers you is the opportunity to see multiple destinations. And it is so exciting to port after port pull into a new country or a new island within the Caribbean that you've only imagined and dreamed about. And on a cruise ship, you get to see it all on one vacation.
And also go back to Istanbul or go back to St. Martin if you loved
Once
it.
you've discovered it.
Right. I say to folks a lot that it would take you 7 years to see the same amount going to each one of those spots.
Exactly.
So now you can do it and decide which one you really want to go back and spend a week on.
Right.
Yeah.
A cruise vacation is the best value vacation that you're going to take because it includes all of your meals, your entertainment. And Joy, you know, when I say entertainment, it's Broadway style $90 plus ticket shows that you're getting on board the ship included.
And not just the shows. I mean, it's the music venues and on some of those larger ships, the comedy clubs. I mean, so the entertainment isn't just the show.
Right.
It includes the show, but the entertainment's a lot more diverse than that.
Right.
So all we can say is go. You'll never be disappointed. Call your local travel agent. Anyone who mentions seeing the Joy of Travel that books with any travel agency in our viewing area will also receive a
$300 onboard value booklet.
So call today. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, the blood drive is in a few days. Here's what you need to do to prepare your body for the best donation experience possible.
Start stocking up on iron-rich foods like green leafy vegetables, lean meats, nuts, and berries. Here's a list of iron-rich foods that you can eat. Also, avoid fatty foods a day or so before you plan to donate. Be sure to get a good night's sleep before donation day. Drink plenty of non-caffeinated beverages like juice or water before and after you donate. Be sure you eat breakfast, and don't forget about lunch if you plan to donate in the afternoon.
Thanks for your help with the life-saving mission of the American Red Cross.
You are a hero.
Today's Royal Buzz is I'm going to talk to you that have never taken a cruise before. We're going to call you a first-time cruiser because I hope that you will call a Michigan travel agency and book your cruise. Cruising offers the best value that you can ever experience for your vacation dollar. Consider under $100 a day, all of your meals, all of your entertainment, and we're talking about Broadway-style entertainment and comedy and shows, and your accommodations, all included in your cruise fare. That's amazing. Then the ship is your transportation, and then you get to visit multiple destinations along the vacation way instead of just one destination, like going to Grandma and Grandpa's house for the week. A cruise is going to be your best vacation value, as I said, and I promise you it will be something that will become a tradition, not only with yourself, but with your family.